There's also this, courtesy of our good friend, the well-respected Monty Poole at NBC Sports Bay Area, reported in a recent article that Klay Thompson is absolutely unequivocally seeking a 3-year contract.
Yeah, there you have it.
Okay, so
there you have it.
Add that in to not just the Warriors situation, but go back to the beginning of the year. I think most people process that, Klay didn't want 24 a year. I bet Klay would have signed 24 a year for 3 years.
Right.
The Warriors offered 2. The Warriors are trying to align everything with Steph Curry. Let's put another brick on the wall.
Okay.
Here's another thing that I bet, I don't know, but I bet would really annoy Klay Thompson. I'm 2.5 years younger than Steph. I'm going to the Hall of Fame. I've scored 37 in a quarter. I've scored 50 in a game. Okay, but we're lining everything up for Steph. Although, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike Dunleavy and Joe Lacob, it appears that Draymond Green, it appears that he got what's called a player option for a year after Steph's deal and after Steve Kerr's deal. So I would imagine you have no problem making mine a 2-year deal plus a 3rd-year player option. I'm sure that would be no problem, right? Right?
Yeah.
Warriors?
About that. And there's also Andrew Wiggins, who has 3 more years on his deal, too. So if you want to throw that in there, assuming he still is a Warriors.
Yeah, he's not going to be on the team.
Well, I mean, if they can find somebody who wants to take that on. And I didn't think that Draymond's was a player option. I thought it was just an ironclad. I'm looking at Basketball Reference. They put it in green when it's a player option. I know Wiggins has a player option for $30.169 million 3 years from now. GP2 has a player option for this year. Don't know if he'll pick that up or if they will tear it up and give him a deal.
Last year is a player option, according to Spot Track.
Okay.
Yeah, player option for the 26-27 year. But what that means is he's in full control of a $27.6 million salary the year after Steph Curry's contract is up.
Right. Steph Curry's contract is up, which I don't know if Steph Curry is going to want to continue playing basketball or not. And that would probably be decided at the end of next year. I don't know if you'd want him to go into his final year, his walk year, without him having an extension. So, yeah, everything does line up with Steph. And I get it if Klay feels some type of way about it. But Steph Curry is the guy. He's the dude on this team. And so, yeah, even Steve Kerr himself said, couple years and the shelf life and don't know about much after that.
Well, I've always thought this, and this is fundamental to the Klay conversation. It was fundamental to the Draymond conversation. It is fundamental to the Brandon Ayuk conversation. While we as fans spend so much time on AAV, I think these guys are much more focused on what's the overall guarantee. Now, what that means in basketball is a little bit different than football because obviously in basketball, everything is guaranteed. But my point is, while we're spending here all this time going, Klay wants 30 a year. Klay wants 30 a year. My sense is if the Warriors had offered, instead of 2 and 48, if the Warriors had offered 3 and 72, Klay Thompson would not be a free agent right now. And you say, well, what's the difference? It's 24 a year. Well, it's 24 more $1 million. So Draymond Green, you remember this conversation we had about his situation and what would he take? Because if my memory serves, 2 seasons ago, the year that the Warriors went to the playoffs and lost to the Lakers, Draymond's salary at the end of that deal was around $27, $28 million. It was something in that range, I think. And we had that conversation about would he take a pay cut? And a lot of people are like, he's not going to take a pay cut. I'm like, he will if you're adding years. And so what did he end up doing? He signed a 4-year deal within year 1 last year. He made 22. He made $5 million less last year than he did the year before.
It was 25.8 is what he made.
Okay, and then
in 22-23.
And then last year he made 22.3. So that's $3.5 million cut for Draymond Green. Why would he do that? Well, because years.
Exactly.
Because you're guaranteeing things on the back end. So Klay may not be so much about, are you paying me 24 or 30? I think based on this report, and it makes sense, he's probably much more about 3 years than he is 2, which at his age is a fair request.
Right.
Based on, you gave it to Draymond. You gave it to Draymond. Why would Klay not say, why not me? Why do I have to do 2?
Especially after a year where he played in, I think, 77 games.
A lot more than Draymond did.
Yeah, more than almost everybody on the team. And so Klay, in his mind, is saying, I played more games, I played more minutes, I showed durability, and you know what? I got better in the second half. He actually had a good last couple of months. Forget the play-in debacle where he didn't make a field goal, but by and large, he had a good year, and he showed that he's durable. So I'm sure he's thinking about years. And I've said all along, I think it is a 3-year deal that is what he's definitely looking for. And you're right, if you're the Warriors, at some point, you got to think about your own financial flexibility and what's to come. So if you give Klay 3 years, 3 and 72, and you get him into the 2026, 27 year, well, you got Draymond already at 27.6 that year. Wiggins can opt in for 30. If the chef is still around, he's going to be making 60 plus, and you're going to pay Klay 27. We're running out of money here again, people. Come on.
This whole thing. Everybody ended up in a bad spot.
Well, that's what
I tell you. Everybody ended up in a bad spot.
At some point, you were going to reach this destination.
Yes,
having this many good players and this many highly paid players.
No question. But I don't even necessarily mean that. When I say everybody ended up in a bad spot, it's not meaning that there has to be a breakup or someone's going to have to play a game in a different uniform. It's that it sounds like this. It's that this breakup does not sound like it's going to be quiet. It does not sound like it's going to be amicable. If you're unfollowing on Instagram, if you're pulling pictures down off of that, if you're off on your bike and taking pictures in LA and talking about how much you miss this place, I mean, just think about it. It feels like a basketball version of a midlife crisis right now for Klay Thompson. I mean, that's what he did. I'm going to change my Instagram and I'm going to get on my bike and go to a different city and show everybody how much I love it there. I mean, it sounds like a country song, to be honest with you, what Klay's doing right now.
Scrubbed my feet and moved away.
Got off my bike, took my dog.
Totally.
And that's it. And I really do feel like everybody ended up in a bad spot. The Warriors wanted this to look and sound and feel different, but they missed the playoffs. And so it is their responsibility to their shareholders and their fans and Steph Curry above all else to do something different this year. And that's what I think nobody knew was going to happen. We got to a spot where Klay Thompson represents the inability to do something else. If they had even just been the 5 seed and made round 2, if they had just done that, I think they could easier sell that thing we hear people say, if Draymond doesn't get suspended,
totally.
You just if Jokic doesn't hit the buzzer beater from half court, and then remember when they were up by 16 on the if we didn't do that, well, we're the 5 seed. Well, that's a lot of ifs, and you were the 10 and got blown off the floor in your opportunity to get out of the 9-10 game, blown off the floor. And so with all of that being the reality, we've got to change. And unfortunately, Klay represents the inability to change. If you pay him what he's worth, because it's what he's worth. If you pay him what he's worth, you're going to be the exact same team again.
Well, and if you give him the length of contract that he thinks that he's worth, and the market will determine whether or not he gets 3 years, I would bet that he probably will.
Me too.
And if he goes out there and he gets 3 and probably not 3 and 90, but maybe he gets 3 and 85, and he goes out and he's Orlando or wherever he winds up, then that's what the market would bear. And the Warriors are looking at it and thinking, at some point, we've got to get out of the second apron We've got to get underneath the tax. And if you keep paying these kinds of contracts, and, I mentioned it, you're already on the hook for this upcoming year. You got 174 on the books. And that is Chris Paul's on there still. That 30 comes off, but you're going to have to replace him. And you go to the next year, you already have 122 million on the books. 2 years out.
Yeah, we've got fresh sound from Ian Rappaport on the Brandon Ayuk situation. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But on this, look, I'd never criticize a guy for knowing what he's worth. I'd never criticize a guy who's a free agent who wants to do something else, no matter what the circumstances. My gosh, that's what the word free means. You're a free agent, off you go, if that's what you want. No criticism here. There's one observation, however, that I'd like to point out. And if I were sort of suggesting something to Klay Thompson, if I were ever in that position, here's what I'd say. Did you notice the way Steph Curry spoke after the team had a disappointing finish to the year? And he did this on 95.7 The Game. He said it directly to Steiny and Goo. The Warriors had lost to the Los Angeles Lakers. And Steph's immediate response had nothing to do with his stats or how many games he'd played or whether or not he was producing at the level he was quote-unquote supposed to produce. The point he was making was, if we don't play well, if we don't get to the goal that we're trying to get to, then we don't really have much we can say when the team wants to make changes. That's the way it goes.
And that's
our accountability. Our accountability is, if we fall short, we fell short. Therefore, I understand if the organization goes, can't keep doing this because that wasn't good enough. And we have to aim for the top. So what's Klay doing? Literally in his exit interview. Could not get out of his exit interview. You see how many games I played? Y'all want to talk about the future? How about if we talk about what I just did? What you just did was miss the playoffs. I don't know how you're not supposed to understand that the company is not okay with that. The corporation is not okay with it. You missed the playoffs. It doesn't matter that you played 77 games. In a way, that actually works against you. Because if you had only played 50, the organization could go, I bet we could make the playoffs if he played 80. But you played 80, and you still missed the playoffs. It's an advertisement for this ain't good enough.
Yeah, for the ineffectiveness of the group.
I don't know what we're supposed to do, Klay. What do you want us to do? We should give you $30 million and come back and be the 11 seed?
Yeah. I don't think he wants that. He wants them to pay him for what he can do and what he is still doing. And that ultimately the market will determine how much that is. Is it 25 a year over 3 years? Is it 30 million? Bobby Marks has said that 30 is about where he thinks it'll go. Is a team out there going to give him 3 years and $90 million? That seems like that's a high price. And I know that's the cost of doing business out there.
Yeah, I bet somebody might.
Right. If somebody's going to do that, then best of luck, Klay. Godspeed, and go do it. Go be a Magic, because the Warriors aren't going to be in a spot to do that. And if they did, then we'd be talking about thank you contracts is what we'd be talking about.
Yeah.
And this team, I don't think if they pay Klay that, they can't replace anybody else. And so you're going to bring back basically the same group. And I don't think that team is a top 5, top 6 seed. I don't think that team's good enough to be a playoff team.
So Klay's not wrong, but neither's the organization. And that's why I would, at this point, predict a breakup, because both of them have positions that are completely defensible. They just don't match.
No.
They don't match. So if Klay is if he's gonna look at this through an individual lens, I did this, so pay me that. I find that to be totally fair, but it does not line up with what the Warriors are doing right now. The other side to it is he could look at it through the team concept, and it's still not going to lead to where he wants to go. So that's why I say I understand his side too. Klay should not look at the Warriors and go, look, I understand we missed the playoffs, and therefore that's super disappointing, and we've got to make changes, so I'll take 10 a year. For the rest of his career, of course not. Think about what he's leaving on the table. Even if he took his 2-year, $48 million offer. You know, again, our fan brain sometimes goes, well, you're only going to make $6 million more somewhere else. No, because somewhere else will give him $3 million.
Exactly.
So he's actually leaving $42 million on the table. You do that.
Exactly.
For the team concept.
Right.
Nobody's doing that.
Well, especially for the team concept that maybe wants to move you to the bench and have you take on a lesser role. And now you're going to suddenly be the sixth man. And last year, Klay came off the bench for the first time since his rookie year. And it seems like he wants to still be Klay Thompson.
Last two texts that came in. This is worth our time. Listen to the last two texts that came in on our text line. 650. Klay apparently forgot how well the team paid him while he was hurt. Shouldn't that mean anything? Very next text. 480. Klay has no consideration for the Dubs paying him to be injured? 4 question marks, which is a statement in and of itself. All right. I don't know how you'd answer that. Here's how I'd answer that. I'd answer that by saying, Klay, if he were sitting here, would go, how did I get injured?
Right. Playing basketball.
For who?
For the Warriors.
What were we doing when I got hurt the first time?
We were in the NBA Finals, Mark.
What did we do the year before that?
I think they were in the NBA Finals.
And the year before that?
NBA Finals.
Okay.
I think I'm getting those right.
So Klay's response, and here's the last one. Okay, Warriors, let's pretend you didn't come to the hospital with a max contract. What would have happened?
He probably would have gotten a big contract somewhere else.
18 other teams would have shown up.
Exactly.
In the next hospital room, knocking on the door.
And it's not like he duped him. He didn't trick him into giving him a contract.
Well, like this was all happening when Klay was not even 30 years old yet. He was not even 30 years old, top of his game, phenomenal player, Warriors going to the finals every year. Like, I understand where you're all coming from, but let's get the Warriors and their contract off of the white horse. They're not heroes, in my opinion. They're not. They paid a guy who had earned it and was clearly still worth it. Now, he ended up getting hurt again before he ever played, and that made it difficult. But never forget, he would argue, and then I came back, and we won another ring.
That's right.
So I get where you're all coming from on that point, those of you who feel that way. But I wonder if you can understand why Klay's response would be that. Let's not act like the Warriors saved my life or something. I'm out here giving something to the Warriors, too, that's pretty significant.
Right, and that is championships. And you mentioned it. He came back and won a fourth. So that in and of itself is rewarding the Warriors for their faith in him because he did come back, and nobody knew that he'd get hurt twice.
Twice, yeah.
You know, it's one thing if you miss a year with the ACL, okay, but then he tears the Achilles as well, so you miss 2 full seasons, 2 and change, actually. Nobody knew that when they were giving him that max, and is that Klay's fault that he tore his Achilles when he was trying to rehab to get better? Of course not. And so because of that, doesn't mean that he owes the Warriors anything. Well, geez, you know, I missed 2 years. I should have only missed 1, so I should probably play 1 year for free to make up for the fact that they paid me a second year when I was hurt. It turned out to be about $68 million he earned without playing basketball.
Yeah.
And so
he's out there trying to put a 4th ring on Joe Lacob's hands, tears his Achilles, knocks down some free throws, gets carried off the court, and people are like, I hope you thanked the Warriors on your way to the locker room and the hospital. No one's going to look at it that way. I totally get where fans are coming from when you say that. I do. I get it. I also get why Klay would be like, that's a bunch of BS.
Right.
It's a bunch of BS.
It's not the way it works.
No.
You know, you get paid and you get a contract, and your job is to do everything you can to fulfill it. And he did by winning another championship.